Hello everyone. In today's lab we're going to cover how to model the shield. We're going to cover a number of different tools. It is going to be Symmetry, Duplicate Special, Smooth, and Soft Select. So those are the four core tools we're going to learn on this lab, and obviously some review from the old ones that we've already done. Now, with that being said, if you haven't already, make sure you download the concept art for the shield. It's in the canvas shell on the module. And we're going to go ahead and import our image plane. So we're going to get started right now. I'm going to import it into my front viewport. So I'm going to click on my little image plane button. It's that little Polaroid picture with that's what I think it looks like, popping out of the square underneath it, I guess, rectangle. And I'm just going to locate my shield, and I just tapped F on the keyboard to zoom in or focus on that object, and I'm going to just move this off to the back here. That'll work, right to the end of the grid. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. And then in my attribute editor, I'm going to go through looking through camera. So this way I can only see it in my front orthographic camera. So from here, I'm going to pop into my front viewport. I'm going to create a cube to get started. And you'll see that I don't have my X-ray or wireframe on shaded on. So I want to do that first. And then I'm going to scale this thing into place. And move it if necessary. I'll move it a little bit up. And now I'm basically ready to get started. I'm also going to thin this thing out because it's a little blocky, a little too blocky for me there. And that's what I'm at. So let's see if I can make these numbers 0.15 on that, just so everyone's on the same page. 5.6, 8.25, and 0.7. So those are the easy numbers if you wanted to match yours exactly to mine. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my attribute editor, going under polycube, and I'm going to adjust my subdivision. So I've got 4, we'll make this 6 and 2. So 4, 6, and 2 on width, height, and depth. And you'll see we've got all this geometry now, right? I'll turn shading and wireframe on shaded here so you can see. I'm also going to turn off the grid. Don't need the grid really right now. So this way you can easily see. Now, a couple things. The first thing I want to cover right now is I want to cover symmetry and duplicate special. So symmetry is, there's a couple ways to kind of, there's a couple different ways to achieve the same exact results. So I guess the most obvious one is moving these, selecting both verts, and I'm clicking and dragging on these. So if I just click one, you'll see that it sort of stays in the back because I didn't select all of them. So if I do a click and drag, I select everything there, and now I can move it. But in order for these to move symmetrically without using the symmetry tool, I can move it up or down. I can't move it left or right because it's not symmetrical then, but I can scale them in and out. So that would work too. But a few extra clicks that we don't have to do. So what I will show you is symmetry. Now there's tons of different ways to do it. Most obvious, it says symmetry off right here. We can do symmetry object X. In the modeling toolkit, you also have it here under symmetry. So I can toggle it on or off from here as well, same exact tool. And then the last one is holding Control, Shift, and right click, Symmetry and Symmetry. And you're going to want to make sure it's on the x-axis here under Object. So these are all different things you can select. Now, with that being said, I'm going to run another click and drag, and I can now, whenever I move on one side, it does the same exact on the other, which is really, really nice and helpful and useful when you're modeling. So the next thing I'd like to show you, so that's the whole thing with Symmetry. Once you have that, you're good to go. You can start to manipulate your model symmetrically, or mirroring it, some people refer to it as. But the last thing I want to show you is duplicate special. And I'm going to turn my symmetry off, and I'm going to duplicate this model. Excuse me. And I'm going to delete half of the model. So now that I've got that, this is kind of what it looks like. And I want to show you a quick little tip that I think is very, very useful. If at any time you need to move these, if you accidentally, let's say, started moving some of these verts, and you wanted them to like line up again, you could do it. So how you do that is using the scale tool. I'm going to highlight all of them down the center line. I'm going to tap R, and I'm going to line these all back up. Now you'll see that these are still not overlapping one another. I can select those two identically and just use the vertical or y-axis pull down to line them back up exactly. But I also have a few other things going, like if I wanted this to match exactly to this vert, and so it's a perfectly straight line, what I do is I hold V. I'll just snap it to that one, and I'm still holding V, and I'll pull it out, and now it's going to snap to these verts that are dead center here in the middle. Do the same thing here. Just quick little ways to fix anything if you ever needed this. Now, I am going to need to turn on my grid for this little demo. So let's just say I wanted to mirror this, kind of what duplicate special does. But you'll notice that it's not falling directly on the x-axis. So once you have all these lined up, hold X and just snap it to the x-axis, holding X. So now you'll know you're directly in the center, and you can always double check to make sure they're all, whoa, lined up. Just want to double check. So holding, using your move tool, holding X, you can go ahead and snap it straight to the grid on X equals 0 technically. So now the last thing I want to show you is the pivot point, which I showed you in the last lab. Holding D, you're going to want this to also be on that center, because that's where it actually will mirror or flip from the pivot point. So holding D and X, I can snap it right there, or I could even have held V, so D and V, because I'm going to be mirroring it from this point. So those are quick little things, just I feel that are really helpful and useful, and this is the perfect tool to show you how to do this in case you ever wanted to try it out yourself on this example or on another one. And then the next thing I can do is I can go to Edit, Duplicate Special, and I'm going to hit the little check or the little box next to it, right? That's going to pop up my tools or properties or settings of this tool. And now I need to make sure, by default it'll be on copy. We need to switch it to instance. And then we're also going to switch scale to -1. And we're going to click duplicate special. And now it's two separate objects. However, it does the same exact thing as Symmetry. Just a cool little tip. So anyway, I'm going to delete this and move this back to 0. And we're going to get to modeling. So those are 3 different ways that you could utilize symmetry. And the easiest one is obviously the most obvious. Just turn it on, right? But you never know when those cool little tips might help. Now, when I'm getting into this model, I've already set up my attributes. Oh, I guess it's not there. I've already set it to that 4, 6, and 2. When I duplicated it, it must have gotten rid of the tools, but as long as yours looks like this, or I can just quickly restart it, we're going to create a cube. We'll go to polycube 1. It must have been when I duplicated it. We're going to scale it into place, just so we're all on the same page, just in case. And make this thin. That should do it. Something like that. And then I'm going to create this to be 4, 6, 2. I think that's what I had. Yep. And now you'll see I've got all my geometry back to where it was. These numbers change, but whatever, it doesn't make that big of a deal. It doesn't have to be exactly identical to mine, and in fact, I don't expect it to be. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start to manipulate this model only using obviously one side, because we're going to turn on our symmetry on object X, and make sure you click and drag. Don't just click on your vertex tool, basically holding Control Shift right click does your symmetry, and holding right click you can go to vertex. But make sure you don't just click on one, because now you'll mess things up. So make sure you do a click and drag and select both of them that are there. I'm going to go ahead and start to move this all into place. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. And actually, that's pretty good. I'll leave that one there. Now, the next thing I want to do is I kind of want to just start to line up my center piece. So I'm going to click and drag these in, or out, depending how you need it. I'm going to go to the outside of it, like so. I guess I'll follow this side of my reference, so this way. Okay, so now I have my shading and wireframe on shaded on here, so you could see. And let's turn off the grid again. So this is what our model looks like. We have the center sort of blocked out, as well as the outside sort of blocked out. And there's a couple ways I can go about doing this. So the first thing I can do is I want to create this center sort of bevel. You'll see on the reference it kind of pushes out, and also on the outside it kind of pushes outward, so you can see that there's like a little indentation going into the shield, if you can know what I mean. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and turn my symmetry off for now. And the reason well, I'll leave it on for a second. I'm going to turn symmetry off in just a moment, but there's a couple ways I can go about doing this. I can highlight all of these, and then I can extrude. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude inward, but It does work with the, that's cool. And you'll see I've got some weird overlapping here on my model. So in order to fix that, I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it, right? You could just move them. Into place. And now, I guess I wanted to bring these to the inside of it. Now I've already created my lines. Around my shield. Should have brought them to the inside on the original part. But you'll see now that I've got this basic shape and both of the shapes all lined up properly. And what I can do with this now is create. I just click one and then holding shift double click so I can select those edge loops. Now I can just go ahead and extrude these out. And I've got my little indentation here for my shield. Now you could always do these a little bit different, you know, if you wanted this one to be a little bit smaller than the outdoor exterior one, whatever you're comfortable with. But you'll see now that I've got that indentation that I was going for. So, and very simple, all I did was just extrude and scaled, and then just moved some vertices around. And that's kind of what modeling is. It's a little trial and error sometimes. But now that I've got that into place, the next thing I can do is I can begin to start adding a little bit more geometry to it to get the look I'm going for and get those sharper edges going around using the bevel tool, because you'll see it's very, very soft here, right? So I'm going to click and duplicate this one over. I just want to show you after I'm done doing the beveling. So I'm going to hold my right click and I'm going to go to my edges, and I'm just going to go around and select all the edges that I want beveled. Ooh. Oh. There we go. So I'm just going through and selecting all the edges that I want to have that crisp cornering on. And yours will look pretty similar. This is probably one of the harder parts, just to make sure that you got all the edges selected properly. And that should just about do it. I guess I could do this one too. And that should, I guess, just about do it. Maybe I should do this one too. And that one. So let's see how that turned. Ooh, I missed these. Let's see how this turns out using the bevel, or the bevel tool, holding shift and right click. We're gonna go to bevel edges, and I'm gonna hit that little corner button or the corner box. And now I'm going to change the width to 0.3. Try that. And segments to 2. And I'm going to hit bevel. And actually, I'm going to undo that real quick. If I go to the bevel and hit the little check, you can always hit apply first if you want it. I don't think there's any difference to it, but either or. And now you'll see I've got some really clean geometry in here, other than this segment right here. Now, it's nothing too alerting. That one's good. If something like this happens to you, when I tap 3 on my keyboard, you'll see what I mean. If something like this happens to you, there's a pretty quick and easy fix to this. I'm going to select my multi-cut tool. I try to do it in smooth mode. It's going to look weird, but it's going to be easier for me to select. I know I'm hovering over this line, but it's showing where it would look like when it's not in smooth mode. So just so you know. And then I'm going to go ahead and click that. Same difference. And now I've just created quads. If that makes sense to you. I just wanted to cover that. Down here I've got some weird things happening too. But it should be okay. It's pulling underneath a little weird. Just kind of want to get a closer look at that. But it should be fine. Now, excuse me. So now that I've got that done, if I tap 3 on my keyboard here with my beveled edges, and I tap 3 on my keyboard from the previous example, you'll see, let's turn off wireframe on shaded. You'll see how much different it looks in comparison when you add those sharp, clean, beveled edges. Now, this is an example of hard surface modeling. That's exactly what we're doing right now, hard surface modeling. And our shield does look like it's starting to look like a shield. We didn't do a whole lot. We beveled a bunch of edges. We extruded once, maybe twice, and then just moved some verts around, and we've got this very clean shape here that's looking pretty good. This is a very good start. So if you're up to this point, great job. Now, I don't think I'm going to need this. I'll keep it here for now, but I don't think I'm going to need it. So, now I've got my shield, and I want to get a little bit more information on here. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to get these, I want to get these bolts in here, these little bolts here. And in order to do that, I need extra geometry on this model. So when I tap 3 on my keyboard, I know I've touched base with this in previous labs. It's showing us a preview, and this is the perfect place to do this. Display, heads up display, poly count. So you'll see when what I have selected. The one on the left here, this is what's in the entire scene. The one on the right is what I have selected, and if I turn this on, I think those numbers will change. Yep. So let's turn that off. So you'll notice that they changed on the left side when I had this on. Now, with this shield here, we are going to smooth this, and basically what that means is we are going to subdivide the geometry. So it will look like this, or very close to it, in the smooth mode, but we're going to hold shift, hold right click. It's easier for me to just show you. Hold shift, hold right click, and go to smooth. And let's just see what's on the settings. Okay, that should work. And we're going to do add divisions exponentially and hit smooth. And now you're going to see that all of my numbers have changed, but I'm also not in smooth mode. I'm in regular mode. If I tap 3 now, it gets a little bit cleaner, but it's not too far off. But we've also increased the geometry significantly. So before I smooth that, how far do I have to go back? So I'm going to duplicate this one, put that one on a layer. Shield before subdivide layer. So I'm just labeling it so I know what it is. And we'll go to smooth and we'll turn this one on, and you'll see the difference. I'm in one mode on both of these. If you put this to 3, you'll see this is still in 1. It looks pretty much identical, almost. You know, there's a couple little polygon things that you can see, but you'll notice that it looks shading, wireframe unshaded. You'll see the difference, and how easy was that to just add a ton of geometry very quickly, right? One click. But again, you need to be careful with this. It will not work properly or well if you don't have clean topology. It won't work right. It'll be really weird and wonky, and I don't even want to get into it, but it will increase. It'll still do it, but if you don't have clean geometry or something, there's a good chance it could, depending on how bad the topology is, it could probably crash the system, or you know, the MIA will probably crash. You'll have to reopen your old file, and all that kind of stuff. So with that being said, I've got my subdivide on here. I don't know why that keeps coming up. Let's just get that out of the way. And here, I can show you how you can really get intricate with this. And that's 4 subdivisions, but you'll see how high my poly count is, right? We only need to do it like once, but you could technically get pretty high poly very quickly. We're going to stick with 1. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add those bolts. Now, the bolts can be a little tricky. But it's probably the biggest part that people struggle with on this lab. Getting to this point shouldn't be too difficult. Maybe a little trial and error, restart the video, you know, watch it from a point that you couldn't catch or something. But getting up to this point isn't too complicated. It's the next part that I find always complicates everyone. But I want to show you how to do this. It's very important. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So for those bolts, we are going to, and actually here, I'll come back to it actually. I'll come back to it. I'll show you how we can start to get a little bit more of this bending shape and things like that here momentarily. But besides the point, let's get to these bolts. So I'm going to start by creating a sphere. I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and I'm going to go to P-sphere, and I'm going to switch this to 8 and 8, and good. And I'm going to rotate this around on my channel box. This should be 90 degrees. And now I've got the start of my bolt, right? And I'm going to, doesn't matter if I have symmetry on or not, delete the other half. And now I've got a very good start to my bolt. So here, I'm actually just gonna move this into place. I'm going to hold V because I think I'm going to snap it right there. And I'm going to scale it. Whoa, that went way too quick. To approximate size. Does that look right? Yeah, I'll go with it. And what I'm going to do is, I need to zoom out here. I am going to duplicate this a number of different times. And I'm going to stay on the lines, this sort of swooping row. This is where pretty much all the bolts are. I'm going to stay right on that and kind of get it as close as I can. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap these to these other places. And I'm going to make it smaller. I like that better. And it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to work with. The next thing I'm going to do is duplicate this one and snap it down there. And I'm just going relative. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm just going to where it's easiest on my geometry, but trying to stay as relevant to the reference as possible. That'll be fine. And one more time. Put that one right there. So that's going to be the placement for all of the bolts that I have. Now, if I was working for an employer or something and they wanted this to be identical, I would manipulate my geometry a little bit and get them exactly into place. But for this example, this is totally fine. So I've got all of my bolts in place, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I want to create, let's see, sections for these to sort of fit in, right? Now, if you remember with the handle on the sword where we were deleting the end caps to make sure we merged them properly so we didn't have all that weird funky geometry, that's what we're going to do here. But this, I can't tell you how useful this is. I can have symmetry on and do this on both sides. And let's just do a quick extrude, and we're going to scale these in. And what I'm doing, ooh, that didn't work. Let's do one more thing. So in order for this to be symmetrical, now it's kind of doing exactly what I'm telling it to, but it's not. So I'm going to leave symmetry on, and just to make this easy, I'm going to add an additional edge loop right there in the center, and now I'm going to do it, and it should work. We're going to do extrude. Yep. And I'm just going to scale that, right? Something like that. Yeah, that'll be fine. And I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to do that for each one. Now, the reason we stuck with 8, one for poly count, but also to make this an easy process. And that should be good, and I'll delete. 1, 2, 3, 4. Having 4 squares to do an is the proper amount of edges and vertices to make it have clean topology. Delete. And we're creating our edge loops for clean topology. And edge loops are really important in characters, especially on the face and body where it would deform. But this is your first go with it. Extrude. Something like that. And delete. Oh, I forgot to delete these. And we'll do the last one. This one I'm going to have to do with symmetry off, I think. Either way. something like that, and delete. And now I've created all of the edge loops and geometry that I need for this to work right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to shift select all of my, except that one in the middle, all of these bolts, and I'm going to put them on the other side as well. So to do that, I'm going to combine them all, and I'm going to make sure that my center point is holding D and X directly at 0. And I'm going to, I don't need to duplicate special these, but I just pressed Control and D to duplicate, or edit duplicate. And I'm just going to scale it on -1. And now you'll see that I've got all of my bolts here in place and exactly where I need them to be. Now, the next thing I need to do is, if you remember right, I need to combine all of these objects. So I'm going to combine all of these objects. It's the circle with the 2 polyplanes in the middle, or squares, you know, 2 squares with a circle around it. And now I'm going to go ahead and merge all of these vertices. Now, I'm sure you all remember how to do it. I could do it by clicking one and shift selecting the other one. And actually, let's do this on Symmetry. And then just do like merge to center. But then I distort my perfect little bolt. So in this case, I'm going to snap these all into place, and then I'm going to merge them momentarily. I want to show you how to do this. So this is how we are going to do this. Oop. And I'm going around and just snapping these all into place. Bada bing. It's going to look a little weird, but it'll be okay. Just holding V, moving each one individually into place. That one didn't go where I wanted it to. So, I know it's a little tedious, but not too difficult, right? Hope not. And then here, we're on to our last one. I can't tell you how useful these little tricks are for you when you need to do something. Can you imagine what it would be like to model Iron Man? That would be crazy. But these types of tips, like to get these little bolts in on a watertight mesh, is just so helpful. Now that I've got all of my geometry in place, and remember I had symmetry on, so I did one, so I only had to do it on one side and cut down half my time. Now I'm going to go to my vertex, and I'm going to highlight every single one of them. All of my vertices are now selected. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to merge them, but I need to adjust something. I need to adjust my threshold on my merge button. So I'm going to hold shift, right click, merge vertices, but I'm going to make sure I hit the little box. And I am going to make this 0.0001. Maybe one more zero. So this way, hopefully the idea is it's only going to merge the vertices that I have just snapped to each one. So let's try it. Let's go ahead and click merge. And let's see if it did it. Now, if you remember right, if I tap 3 on my keyboard, they did all merge. Perfect. And I can tell that because I'm not getting any pinching. I'm getting all that smoothness going together, right? So now I'm going to go to my edge, and I want to make these a little bit more crisp. And I'm just double clicking the edge loops. I'm going to hold shift, right click, and bevel edge. That's what I did before, so let's try it again. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Let's try 0.1. That should work. And yours, you might need to play around with yours. But if I tap 3, now let's turn on shading wireframe on shaded off. You'll see I have these really crisp, sharp bolts here, all on one mesh that really makes this thing pop. And I'm going to soften all my edges real quick so you can see. Holding shift, right click, soften edge, soften edge. So you can see in smooth mode how nice and crisp that is. And I don't have crazy, I mean, I have a good amount of geometry, but we started on a low poly, we subdivided it, and now we've got this great looking shield so far. So I think the last thing I'm going to show you, we covered smooth, we covered symmetry, duplicate special, and we're going to go into the soft select next. So this is a really useful tool. I think they added it here. I only know the keyboard shortcut on how to find it, unless they've added it in here. We're looking for soft select, it's called. I've literally never been able to find it, but it is such a good tool. So tapping B on your keyboard turns on your soft select mode. I just don't even see it anywhere. Soft select. Tapping B on your keyboard is the only way I know how to access it. And holding B and clicking and dragging left or right will expand or decrease your, increase or decrease your, basically your threshold, I guess, on edges. And this is exactly how we are going to warp this shield to kind of have a curve to it. It looks great like this, but I just feel like this is a great place to try to show you. So I'm just going to double click. I'll turn that off for a second. Oh, I'm going to need to, that's strange. I love the geometry on it, but it's not doing me any favors right now because I guess that's going to do it. Seems weird. I liked it. I typically always have one that goes right straight down the middle, but since I did some beveling, this should work. It created a couple extra geometries to do that, but I'm going to tap B on my keyboard. It should still work just fine. And just selecting the edges down the direct center of it. I'm going to increase this to be, I don't know. Let's see what something like this does. I'm going to tap W, and you can see I get that nice little warp to it. Right? I could go extreme, but you get the idea. It's a great place for this tool to be demonstrated, that's for sure. Now, there's really no other way to do this easily, so this is definitely, and if you wanted to play around with the threshold a little bit more, that might work. And I feel like that should do it. I mean, I didn't even think about it, but I guess you could have selected like the edge, like on each side, and then pulled those back, but that should do it. So anyway, there's my shield. I've got that soft curve to it, giving it a little bit more of a feel. Hold on. And let's see. Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, my eyes were playing tricks on me. Do I like it with that much of a curve? No. Do it like that. Something like that. Anyway, so there's my shield. I want you to submit the Maya file. Submitting a screenshot on this one just isn't going to work properly because I won't be able to see so much of your model. To this point also, I am going to do, because I am all said and done, let's go to my layer, just to show you how far we came with this. And none of these are all in that one mode, not smooth, but if we put them all in smooth mode, I mean, you can really see the difference in the modeling progression from where we started to about halfway to finish and complete. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit, delete all by type and history on my shield. I'm going to modify and center pivot, and I'm also going to do modify freeze transformations. It was already zeroed out, but in case yours isn't, figured I'd do that and show you. And really, what a night and day difference from where we started, and these are all 3 mode, to where we ended. Just good progress. But if you do have questions, I know this lab isn't the easiest in the world to do, but I feel like if you can do the sword, I know you can do the sword. I've been teaching this for years. I know this one is going to give you some struggle. Do your best. I will, for those of you who really struggle getting those bolts on, because it happens all the time, I'm going to give you a little, quick little shortcut. If you're just not getting this and it's messing up your geometry and it's just total nightmare, hair pulling, I prefer you to be able to do this. It is something you need to do, but it's not part of my grading rubric to have these bolts modeled in. I will allow you, I really want you to try this way. It's such a good practice to do. If you can do this, if you can model this model right here, how we have it here, you can probably model anything. And I don't mean that as a joke at all. I really believe that. If you can model this shield to have it look like this, you can model probably anything. Now, what was I going to show you? Yeah, so I'm glad I kept this one up. So let's run a quick smooth on this. I will accept it if you are really struggling with those bolts. Going to do this pretty quick. Not even going to look at the reference. I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I have the other ones. snapping the pivot to the center using the snap to vert, because now I'm no longer on the grid. My grid isn't x equals 0 anymore, so I'm snapping this to be here on the shield. And scale -1. Oh, of course. Control D. Scale -1. So if you have it like this, I will allow you, if you're really struggling with this, this is a way to do it. You can combine it, because it's not a terrible thing, but I really want you to be able to do it something like this. I'm going to select the verts down the middle, turn up my soft select, and there we have it. Same results, a lot faster. But this is definitely a better practice to be in. Well, let's not say it like that. It all depends on who you would be working for, essentially, and how they want you to have it done. But you really need to be able to get to this level. I know some of you are going to really struggle with the bolt part. So if you are, I will allow up to this point to just create the bolts and then combine them as an object with the shield and then soft select and move it out. So I just want to give you that option as well, because I know this is a hard lab, but it is really useful, and I really hope you enjoy it. Try to stay having fun while you're doing this lab, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to message me on Canvas inbox. I can't stress it enough. I know I say it in every video, but I really mean it. Other than that, I don't have anything else to cover on this lab, but again, shoot me a message on Canvas if there's anything that you're struggling with, or if you have any questions or anything. It could be even off topic, but enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks so much.